The ancient bloodline. The night sky was awash with stars, their pale light casting long shadows over the ancient city of Hebron. Its tall walls, worn by centuries, enclosed secrets that few dared to speak of. Among these secrets, whispered only in the darkest corners, was the tale of the Nephilim, the giant beings born of angels and humans. Their bloodlines were said to be long extinct, wiped out by the Great Flood, yet rumors persisted that a few still roamed the earth, hidden in the shadows, their power unmatched. Isaac was a scholar, one of the last of a dying breed who still sought the truth in old scrolls and ancient texts. Unlike other men of his age who had long since given up on myths, Isaac was obsessed with the legends of the Nephilim. He believed they were not just stories, but accounts of real beings who once walked the earth, and perhaps still did. For years, Isaac had searched for evidence, traveling from city to city, from the libraries of Alexandria to the ruins of Nineveh. He had found scraps of parchment, vague references in Sumerian tablets, and carvings on ancient stones, but nothing concrete, nothing to prove that the Nephilim were more than just a myth. Until tonight. Isaac stood alone in a darkened chamber deep beneath the city of Hebron. The chamber had been forgotten for centuries, hidden beneath layers of earth and rock. He had stumbled upon it by accident, following an old map he had found in a dusty library in Damascus. Now before him was a stone tablet, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. He ran his fingers over the smooth surface, tracing the symbols. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, a mixture of ancient languages, some of which he recognized and others he did not. But one thing was clear, the tablet spoke of the Nephilim. The blood of the giants, Isaac whispered, translating the ancient text. Born of the fallen, they will rise again when the world is on the brink of destruction. Isaac's heart raced. He had heard prophecies of the end times before, but this was different. The Nephilim were not just relics of the past, they were a threat to the future. Chapter 2. The prophecy unfolds. Far away in the bustling city of Jerusalem, an ominous presence had begun to stir. Ancient forces, long dormant, were awakening. The signs were subtle at first, a strange alignment of stars, unexplained tremors beneath the earth, and whispers of a prophecy among the priests. But it was in the wilderness, in the desolate lands where few dared to venture, that the true signs appeared. There, among the crumbling ruins of ancient cities, darkness was spreading, a palpable living thing that choked the life out of everything it touched. Isaac knew he had little time. The prophecy he had uncovered spoke of a Nephilim king, long buried in the depths of the earth, who would rise again to lead his kind in a final battle against mankind. This king, known as Zarth, was said to be the most powerful of the Nephilim, a giant whose strength was matched only by his cruelty. Zareth's tomb was said to be located somewhere in the Valley of the Giants, a place lost to time. Isaac had only a vague idea of where to begin his search, but he knew he had no choice. If Zarth was allowed to rise, the world as he knew it would be destroyed. Chapter 3. The hunt begins. Isaac assembled a small group of warriors and scholars, men who believed in the ancient tales and were willing to risk their lives to prevent the prophecy from coming true. Among them were Gideon, a warrior of unmatched skill, and Miriam, a healer with knowledge of ancient rituals and spells. Their journey took them deep into the wilderness, across barren deserts and treacherous mountains. The further they traveled, the more Isaac began to feel the presence of something dark and ancient watching them, lurking just beyond the edge of their perception. One night, as they camped beneath the shadow of a great mountain, they were attacked. The assailants were not men, but creatures of nightmare, giant beings with eyes that glowed like embers and skin as hard as stone. They fought with a savagery that stunned even the seasoned warriors in Isaac's group. Gideon fought like a lion, his sword flashing in the firelight as he cut down the monstrous beings one by one. But for everyone he killed, two more seemed to take its place. It was Miriam who saved them in the end, chanting an ancient spell that caused the earth to shake and the creatures to flee. Breathing heavily, Isaac looked around at the bodies of the fallen creatures. Their blood was dark and thick, like oil, and their bodies were massive, twice the size of any man. Nephilim, Gideon whispered, his voice filled with awe and fear. Isaac nodded. They had found the Valley of the Giants, the tomb of Zarth. The Valley of the Giants was a desolate place, surrounded by towering cliffs and filled with the ruins of ancient cities. It was said that this was the birthplace of the Nephilim, where the fallen angels had first descended to earth and taken human wives. In the center of the valley stood a massive stone structure, half buried in the earth. It was the tomb of Zarth, the Nephilim king. Isaac could feel the power emanating from it, a dark energy that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As they approached the tomb, the ground beneath their feet began to shake. The air grew thick with the smell of sulfur, and the sky darkened as if a storm were brewing. "We must be careful," Isaac warned. "The tomb is protected by ancient spells. If we are not cautious, we could unleash something far worse than Zarth." Gideon nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Miriam began to chant softly, her voice a soothing counterpoint to the rising tension. They entered the tomb, their torches casting flickering shadows on the walls. The air inside was thick and heavy, filled with the scent of decay. The walls were covered in carvings, depicting scenes of giants waging war against men, and in the center of the chamber lay a massive stone sarcophagus. "This is it," Isaac said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The resting place of Zarth." As they approached the sarcophagus, Miriam's chanting grew louder. Isaac could feel the power in the room building, the air crackling with energy. He placed his hand on the stone lid, feeling the cold, smooth surface beneath his fingers. "Are you sure about this?" Gideon asked, his voice tense. Isaac nodded. "We have no choice. If we don't stop him now, he will rise and bring destruction to the world." With a deep breath, Isaac pushed against the lid. It moved slowly, grinding against the stone as it slid open. Inside, wrapped in ancient tattered cloth, lay the body of Zarth. Or what was left of him. The awakening Zarth's body was massive, even in death. His skin was a pale grey, his muscles still bulging beneath the wrappings. But it was his eyes that drew Isaac's attention, deep, hollow sockets that seemed to stare into his soul. Isaac reached out, touching the amulet that hung around Zarth's neck. It was a simple piece of jewelry, a black stone set in a silver frame, but it pulsed with a dark energy. "This is the source of his power," Isaac said, his voice trembling. "If we destroy it, we can stop him from rising." But as Isaac reached for the amulet, the ground beneath them shook violently. The walls of the tomb began to crack, and a low rumbling sound filled the air. "He's waking up," Miriam shouted, her voice filled with fear. Isaac grabbed the amulet, yanking it from Zarth's neck. But it was too late. The giant's eyes snapped open, glowing with an unnatural light. With a roar that shook the earth, Zarth sat up, his massive hands reaching out to crush the intruders. Gideon was the first to react, his sword slicing through the air as he lunged at the giant. But Zarth was too fast, his hand swatting Gideon aside like a fly. The warrior crashed into the wall, his sword clattering to the ground. Miriam continued to chant, her voice rising in pitch as she tried to contain the giant with her spells. But Zarth was too powerful, his will too strong. He rose to his full height, towering over them, his eyes burning with hatred. Isaac knew they were outmatched. He had to think fast, or they would all be dead within moments. He looked at the amulet in his hand, feeling the dark energy coursing through it. He realized then that the only way to stop Zarth was to use the amulet against him. With a shout, Isaac held the amulet high, directing its energy at the giant. Zarth roared in pain as the dark energy surged through him, his body convulsing as he struggled to resist. But it wasn't enough. Zarth's power was too great, his will too strong. He fought against the energy, his eyes locking onto Isaac with a murderous glare. In a final desperate move, Isaac threw the amulet to the ground, smashing it with the heel of his boot. The stone shattered, releasing a burst of dark energy that filled the chamber. Zarth,